It's worth 50 points. So if you want a pencil, oh, anybody need a pencil? Everybody has a calculator? All right, so hopefully it's a chance for you all to bring up your grade a little bit. Module 6 kind of knocked us down a little bit. All right, so Pythagorean theorem, who remembers what that is? C squared equals what? A squared plus B squared. The most important part of this is that C has to be the hypotenuse. I don't know if I could fit that in here, but you kind of get it. Okay? C has to be the hypotenuse. That is the Pythagorean theorem. What information do you have or want when you're using this theorem? Does anybody know? You gotta have two sides. Okay, Maya, I got one. I only need one person. You have to know two sides. If you only know one side, that is not enough. So you can use the Pythagorean theorem when you know two sides and you're just trying to figure out the third side. Okay, so what kind of information do you need to know when you're using trigonometry? By the way, trigonometry is that sine, cosine, tangent. That's what that is. That's what trig is. Huh? You don't need to know the hypotenuse, but if you're trying to find a side, it's actually kind of complex. Well, it's not complex. If you're trying to find a side, you need to know an angle and one side. Now, when I say an angle, that does not include the 90-degree angle. So you have to know at least one other angle inside of the triangle other than the right angle, and you have to know one side. So you don't need two sides like the Pythagorean theorem. You just need one side and an angle. But if you're trying to find an angle, first of all, you use the inverse. That's so important. You have to know two sides. Okay, so I'm not going to go through every single question, but I'm going to do like part A and you do part B type of thing. So it's really important that you're able to recognize what you're going to use, okay? So looking at number 3, what do you think I'm using, the Pythagorean theorem or trigonometry? First of all, I'm looking for a side. I'm looking for a side. Who thinks I'm using Pythagorean theorem? You are, because you know two sides. If I knew the measure of either this angle or this angle, I could do trig, but I don't know that. So the most important thing is to identify C. So this side has to be C. So let's go ahead and set it up. C squared is going to equal 9 squared plus 12 squared. Go ahead and pick up your calculators. Find 9 squared plus 12 squared. And then add those numbers together. Does anybody need a calculator? Good. Now you got to, so that's C squared though, not C. So c squared equals that number. So you have to take the square root of it. So who got 15? 15? All right, let's go through it. So c squared equals 81 plus 144. C squared equals 225. Because c is squared, you have to do the square root. So your final answer, C is 15 yards. That would be your answer. All right, I'm going to help you set up B. So, do we know the hypotenuse in this question? Yes, we do. Because that 15, see how this is opposite the 90? That is C. So, you're going to set it up. 15 squared equals x squared plus 10.1 squared. All right, go ahead and type that in your calculator. Figure out what 15 squared is and 10.1 squared. But this time you're going to need to subtract the 10.1 squared. Okay, 102. All right, so who had that when they squared them both? We got that? Okay. But now, in order to solve, I have to subtract. Anytime you're looking for a side that's not the hypotenuse, you will need to subtract. So go ahead and figure out what you get. Take 225 minus that number, and then you have to square root the answer that you get. So you have to subtract that 225 minus 102.01, and then take the square root of your answer. All right, and for X, I should have looked to see what it said round to. Okay, so the 10th place. So would that be 11.0 or 11.1? 11.1 yards. And that would be your answer. Any questions so far? Please speak up because I want you all to do well on the quiz. We need to bring up them grades. Okay. to number 4. So I want you all to read it and see if you can figure out the mistake. I'll read it out loud. So we have an A-frame and the house with a, I'm sorry, let me start over. Let me actually read. An A-frame house has a width of 60 feet. So from here to here is 60 feet. All right. The sides of the roof are 50 feet long. Jamie tried to find the altitude, correct, circle her mistake, and then solve it. So, looking at it, so let me go ahead and redraw this triangle. Because the altitude, by the way, just in case you don't know, that's this side. That's the height. Altitude means height. So, if I were to redraw just that piece, we're trying to find A. This side is 50, and she said that this side was 60. All right, so I see 2 mistakes. What's one mistake? Right, 50 is across from 90, so that should be C. All right, and then there's another big mistake.
Should have been 30, not 60.
Should be 30 and not 60. So from here to here is 60, but I'm only looking at half of the triangle. So that should really be 30. So that's the mistakes. So now that we have done that, it says we have to fix it. So what it should have been typed up as or written as is C squared, which is 50. So 50 squared equals A squared plus 30 squared. All right, go ahead and fix that and get the correct A value. So 2 mistakes. Let me actually circle it over here too. Number 1, this is the hypotenuse. And number 2, this should be 30, not 60. So that's 2 very, very big mistakes. So go ahead and square the 50 and the 30. And then you have to subtract and take the square root. Okay, so I got that A should have been, I don't know what the unit was, feet, yeah. So that's the correct A value. Anybody else get A equals 40? So A is 40 feet. All right, SOHCAHTOA. So you have to know which trig ratio uses what sides. So this stands for sine, and that equals opposite over hypotenuse. That's why it's a so. This is the S, the O, the H. That's supposed to help you remember what sine is. Chi, C, and that's A over H. That stands for cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse. And then lastly, we have tangent, and that equals opposite over adjacent. So tangent equals opposite over adjacent. So that is what the acronym stands for. All right, we'll do one. See your study guide real quick. Trying to see if we got any hard ones we can do today. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at number 6, and then we'll do the factoring review, and then we'll end there for today. So we need to figure out a plan. So they only want us to find theta. So that's this right here. Okay, not x. So first of all, how are we going to do that? Inverse trig. Go ahead and label your sides using this as your reference. Label your sides: opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. Remember, hypotenuse is across from the 90. Adjacent is right next to the angle. It's the side that touches the angle. So Demetrius, what do you think the 18 is in this triangle? Hypotenuse, yeah. So this is the hypotenuse. All right, what about the 15? Love, what do you think that 15 is? Is it opposite or adjacent to it? Opposite. So now we have to figure out what trig ratio we're using. Which one uses only O and H? What'd you say? Sine. So theta is going to be the inverse sine, because we're looking for an angle, and it's 15 over 18. Go ahead and type that in your calculators. To the 10th place. So you got to hit the green button first, and then you have to hit sine. So would it be 56.4 or 56.5? All right, 4 degrees. All right, so now let's find, oh. Was it showing up there? I don't know. Never mind. I don't know. Confused myself. All right, so now let's find x. So x, we know 2 sides. So if I know 2 sides, what am I doing? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. This is a totally separate question. Let's look at B. So we only know one side and we know an angle. So that means we can't do Pythagorean theorem. We have to do trig. All right, so first of all, where did I put the x? On the side. Okay, let me put that back on there. So the x is here. So let's go ahead and label the side where we have the x and the side with the 36. So 36 would be my what? Hypotenuse. And is the x next to the 60 or opposite the 60? Adjacent. All right, what trig ratio uses A and H? Cosine. So I'm going to set up my equation. It's going to be cosine of 60 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So I'm going to write it down here. And go ahead and pick up your calculators. You're going to multiply, bless you, this way. And you're going to multiply this direction. So when you multiply it on this pink wing, I'm multiplying 1 times x. I'm going to set that equal to the green wing, which is cosine 60 times 36. And it doesn't matter how you type it. I'm going to put the 36 first, and then the cosine 60. But you could also type it in this way. But if you type it in with the cosine 60 first, make sure you put the 36 in the parentheses, so it doesn't think you're talking about the cosine of 6,036. And we get 18. All right, let's go to the very last question, and then tomorrow we'll finish. Type it in. Wait, why are you doing inverse? We're not looking for an angle. So you should just type in cosine of, what's the angle? Yeah, the way you have it written here. So 36 cosine 60. All right, so let's go to the very last page and look at this one here. So the first step of factoring is always look for a GCF. So Isaiah, what do you think the GCF would be in question A? What can I divide out of both of those? You can go a little higher.
6.
Nope, can't do 6.
4.
4. What else can I take out? X. So we're going to take out the 4x. I want you to divide that and write what you would have left on the inside. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. Subtract the exponents, you get an x, plus 12 divided by 4 is 3. And you can't go any further than that. That is your actual final answer. Question B is the difference of squares. So we're going to make 2 parentheses. We're going to figure out what we multiply to get x, put that in the front, and what multiplies to give you 100. So well, the only thing that can multiply to give you x is x times x. What can I multiply to get 100? 10 times 10. And what's the difference? What do you have to do in the middle for this pattern? Plus or minus. That is your final answer. All right, lastly, we are left with C. We don't have a GCF. A is not 1, so we need to make our box. So we take A times C, so that would be 3 times negative 20. And then B is at the bottom. So don't say it out loud, but you got to find two numbers that multiply to be negative 60, but add to a positive 11. All right, what's the numbers? That's kind of, these are, somebody besides Kyron. I should say Kyron or Maya, because they're the only two to answer. Let me look over here on this side. Anybody know the two numbers? They multiply to be negative 60, add to 11. Okay, we keep looking in. So one thing I do, because I see a lot of people struggling, is just take the 60, start off by taking 60 and dividing it by 2. So if I were to take 60 and divide it by 2, then I would have 2 and 30. But could that be the numbers? Because when they subtract, if you take 30 minus 2, do you get 11? So it can't be that. So now let's take it and divide it by 3. So pick up your calculators, take 60 and divide it by 3. And you should get 3 times 20. Now I want you to take 20 minus 3 in your calculators and see if you get 11. All right, so what do you think we're going to divide it by next? We did 2, we did 3. What's the next number? 4. Take the 60 and divide it by 4. And you get 15. It's 15 minus 4, 11. So my numbers are 15 and 4. And which one would be positive? 15, and the 4 is negative. So we're going to put our 15x here and our negative 4x here. And now we're ready to take out our greatest common factors. So when I'm looking at these two, 3 and 4, the only factor that they have in common is x. So I'm only taking out a 1x here. And when I go this direction though, keeping in mind that whatever I take out here needs to multiply to be 3x squared, well, the only number that I can multiply by 1 to get 3 is 3. So I'm going to put a 3x on the side. All right, so then when I look at this column, I notice that I could take out a 5. And if I'm not sure, I got to figure out 3x times what number will give me 15x. And that would be a 5x. Or a 5, sorry, not a 5x, just a 5. And then we go down to our last column. And I know whatever I take out needs to multiply by 1 to give me negative 4. and it needs to multiply by 5 to give me a negative 20, which means it has to be negative. So I am going to take out a negative 4. So my factors would be 1x plus 5 and 3x minus 4. Use the rest of the class to continue working. Try to do number 7, or actually I think I would try to do number 11. So try working on number 11, going to the front of your packet, and then we will pick up here tomorrow, finishing out our